Week 5 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. He's been the most consistent tight end so far in the first month of the season. Number 1 option in the passing game for this Arizona Cardinal team. And this week with a great matchup versus the Tennessee Titans, who haven't stopped anyone all season long. I think this is the bigger games of the year for McBride. Number 2, Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts. So quickly, he's moved up the ranking boards. Tyler Warren, a lot of hype in the preseason about him, and rightfully so. He was a first-round pick in the NFL draft, 15th overall from the Colts, and he's arguably the number 1 option in the Colts passing attack as well is Tyler Warren. So last week and previous weeks, we've seen him even line up at fullback. He's a versatile tight end. Had a rushing touchdown last week, and in a good matchup versus the Vegas Raiders that can't stop anyone. And Indianapolis' offense is better at home than it's been on the road over the last couple seasons. Tyler Warren could be in for a big game. Number 3, Brock Bowers. Number 3, Brock Bowers of the Vegas Raiders. So his numbers haven't been up to par. And with this knee injury for Brock Bowers, I think it's been a big part of it. Explosiveness isn't just there 100% for Bowers. Him and Geno Smith as well still haven't been on the same page, where Geno's been inaccurate all season long, throwing a lot of interceptions. And like I said, if Bowers isn't getting that extra step that he usually has because of the bulky knee that he hurt in week 1, his numbers are going to take a hit. So the last couple weeks now, from the number 1 tight end, he's slowly moving down the rankings as Bowers. But this week in the matchup in Indianapolis, fast track, maybe could turn things around. And hopefully weekly, that knee's healing very slowly, where he could get back to what he was doing last season. But like I said, this Raider team, the passing attack really hasn't been great. Geno Smith's been a turnover machine. And this week in Indianapolis, we'll see if he can get back to double-digit fantasy points as Bowers. Number 4, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. So Ferguson, the last couple weeks since CeeDee Lamb's been out of the lineup, he's been a target machine for this Dallas Cowboy team. Number 2 option in the offense. Him and George Pickens, a good tandem right now for this Cowboy team, where last week they both had big games in that tie shootout 40-40 on Sunday Night Football. So this week a good matchup at the New York Jets. They don't have a great linebacking crew. And Dak Prescott and Ferguson, they've been locked in for years, where they just got good rapport, and Dak knows where to get the football, where Ferguson can make plays. So this week at the Jets, I think he's in for another 9-12 target type of game, and he'll work into production. Number 5, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. So arguably Hunter Henry is the top option in the passing game, him or Stephon Diggs for this New England Patriot team. So this week a matchup at the Buffalo Bills. Their defense has definitely underperformed this season as this Buffalo Bill team. And Hunter Henry, he's finding the end zone. He's making plays. Drake May, a young quarterback, and I always say a young quarterback's best friend and security blanket on key downs or just on quick plays to get a few yards and move the chains is the tight end position. So this week at Buffalo, where I believe they'll be chasing points, is this New England Patriot team. Hunter Henry go out there and have a good game. Number 6, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. So 3 out of 4 games to begin the year, double-digit fantasy points for Juwan Johnson. I know he's banged up a little bit. He missed practice yesterday, but I think he should be good to go. Juwan Johnson, and he's arguably the number 2 option in this passing game behind Chris Olave. So Johnson, we've seen some flashes from him on and off over the last couple of years, but so far this year, like I said, he's off to the best start of his NFL career. And this week in a good matchup versus the New York Giants, a defense that isn't really that good. I think Johnson could go out there, have a good game. Once again, number 7, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert this season, he's having a better year than he did last year to begin the season. I know he missed a game in week 2 with Dallas Goedert, but he's going out there, he's making plays. He found the end zone twice last week. This week, definitely a tougher matchup versus Denver than it was last week versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but him and Jalen Hurts are locked in, and he's outperformed easily Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, where Hurts feels more comfortable getting him the football, and maybe he's getting more separation as well. Number 8, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Kelce's been underperforming so far this season, but the Chiefs the last 2 weeks, they're putting points on the board. Patrick Mahomes looks like he's back to form from a few seasons ago, where it doesn't matter who his receivers are or tight end, moving the football around, moving the chains, and putting points on the board. So this week, Monday Night Football at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not a good defense. If any time for Kelce to turn things around, it will be with the bright lights on Monday night and a good matchup at the Jaguars. Number 9, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So besides week 1, he's been a disappointment to Sam Laporta. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, who's having a down year, as well, where pretty much it's been Gibbs and St. Brown, the two top guys in this offense this season, and rightfully so, though, for this Detroit Lions team. But Sam Laporta, his rookie season, it was a similar offense, and he broke all these type of records, but last season was a down year for him majority of the season, and so far this year, like I said, only one double-digit fantasy day in 4 games in PPR leagues. This week, if he's going to get right, it's a great matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. That can't stop anyone. They don't have anyone that could cover a St. Brown or Laporta, in my opinion. So I think Sam Laporta this week could break out of the slump. Number 10, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. So Kincaid, he's been solid this season. Arguably, be the number one option in the passing game is Kincaid. Keon Coleman, besides week 1, hasn't done much. Shakir had a couple decent games here and there, but I don't still think he's a number one option in a passing attack. And also Joshua Palmer, we haven't seen much from. So Kincaid has been a big red zone and touchdown threat in the early going for this Buffalo Bill team. They took him with a first-round pick a few seasons ago. And like I said, Josh Allen in that red zone, he's looking for Kincaid early and often, and more times than not so far this season. He's come down with a touchdown. So this week in a matchup versus the Patriots, which is a middle-of-the-pack defense, I think Kincaid could go out there and have a good ball game. Number 11, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So the first 2 weeks, non-existent type of games it was for Mark Andrews. And now the last 2 weeks, double-digit fantasy games. But now with Lamar Jackson out, we'll see how Cooper Rush takes to this offense. And obviously it's going to be more of your typical offense where Lamar Jackson, we know, runs that football anywhere from 8 to 12 times per game and a lot of different formations. But it's going to be under center a lot, I think, with Cooper Rush in their quarterback, and it's a more traditional offense. And that's where last season we saw Jake Ferguson and Schoonmaker, when Cooper Rush was at quarterback, have some decent games. So I think even with the quarterback change, there's a possibility he might even benefit Andrews a little bit more, where a quarterback like Cooper Rush, who's a good short yardage passing quarterback, will hit the tight end more with targets. And this week it's a decent matchup versus Houston. 12, Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been the most consistent pass catcher, believe it or not, the first month of the season. Brian Thomas, pretty much been non-existent this season. Scared to cross the middle, it seems like. He's had drop problems as well. And Travis Hunter, he's playing limited role on offense, where he's playing both sides of the football. So this week in a matchup versus the Chiefs, where they're going to most likely be chasing points early and often on Monday Night Football, I think Brenton Strange, he could score anywhere from 8 to 12 fantasy points in PPR leagues. Number 13, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So Hawkinson, a couple weeks ago, he had a touchdown, but everyone scored, it seemed like, in that Week 3 blowout victory, 48-10 versus the Bengals. And then last week, a pedestrian game in Dublin versus the Steelers, only 5.40 fantasy points. So this week, another overseas game for this Minnesota Viking team. A tougher matchup, obviously, versus the Cleveland Browns, where they got a versatile defense and they make you earn every yard, and tough to score on them consistently. So this week, Hawkinson, he might be in for another down week. But like I said, he could arguably be the number 2 option in this passing game. I know Addison came back last week, had a pretty solid ball game, but Hawkinson still could run the routes, work the middle of the field, and hopefully him and Carson Wentz get the rapport down. 14, Darren Waller of the Miami Dolphins. So it was a good coming out party for Waller last week, season debut, after he missed majority of training camp and obviously the first 3 weeks of the season with this Dolphin team. But last week scored 2 touchdowns and led them to victory versus the New York Jets. And now with Tyreek Hill obviously out for the season, more targets are going to go around in this offense. And Darren Waller, he's always been a guy that scores touchdowns. Obviously 6'6", 6'7", a big target and a matchup problem for safeties and linebackers. And this week at a Carolina defense that can't stop anyone, I think Waller could go out there once again and have a good ball game. And the 15th and final tight end I'm ranking is Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. So Jaden Daniels is coming back to the lineup, which is good news for everyone over here in Washington. It looks like Terry McLaurin might miss another week or 2 from the latest practice reports, where it looked like he was in the right direction of playing this week. So that just means, in my opinion, more targets for Zach Ertz. And arguably, he was the number 2 option in the passing game this season. In the first 2 games, Daniels was playing behind Debo, and McLaurin wasn't doing much. So this week in a potential high-scoring game at the Los Angeles Chargers, I think Zach Ertz could go out there and have a decent performance. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for Week 5 of the fantasy football season.